Hello and welcome guys to a new episode on SportPredictorFanatic. Today we're going to predict the round 5 of the Premier League matches that are going to be played this weekend. First we're going to do the prediction part of the video, so I'm going to predict every match. And then we're going to get into the actual betting part of the video. So let's just start. The first match that is going to be played is, I think, a big match of West Ham against Chelsea. West Ham have started the season with 4 points out of the first 4 matches, with the last one being a draw against Fulham. The losses were against Manchester City and Aston Villa. And with that, I don't really think that's a shame to lose against, although it is a bit sad because I predicted West Ham in the top 4 and they're not looking likely to get it. But that's not a whole different topic. But then the other team, of course, Chelsea, have started the season with Conference League qualification, which they did by beating Servette 3-2 in aggregate. In the Premier League, they are on 7 points after 4 matches, with their last match being a 1-0 win over Bournemouth. Also, their loss was against Manchester City, so in that, no real shame. Last season, West Ham and Chelsea, of course, played each other twice, with both times the home team winning. And I think this will be a really fun match, a really close contested match. Which could actually go both ways, but I'm actually going to go for West Ham, as they look alright at home, and I think they are a little bit more consistent. Maybe consistent, not the best peak, but they're consistent, while Chelsea is like up and down and up and down. So with that, I'm going to go for West Ham. Then we have Aston Villa against Wolves. Aston Villa have had a great start of the season with 9 points out of the first 4 games in the Premier League, with the one loss, of course, coming against Arsenal. And then earlier this week, they also won their first Champions League matchup against Young Boys with 3-0. Also started the season with only 1 point after their 4 games in the Premier League. Having said, though, they have lost against Arsenal, Chelsea and Newcastle, which are, of course, no easy games. So I think they had just a hard matchup in the beginning of the season. Wolves also played earlier this week in the EFL Cup, which was lost with 3-2 against Brighton. Last season, Aston Villa and Wolves, of course, played each other twice, with Aston Villa winning at home and the other one ending in a draw. I think Aston Villa do have the better team, but I think it's going to be a close match, but I think Aston Villa will get the W here. Then we have Fulham against Newcastle. Fulham have started the season with 5 points in the first 4 games. The last match was an EFL Cup match, which was actually lost against Preston North End, who are, I think, in the Championship. It was lost on penalties, though. And Newcastle have done quite well at the start of the season, with 10 points out of the first 4 games, with the last 2 games being won against Tottenham and Wolves. Last season, Fulham and Newcastle played each other 3 times, with all 3 times Newcastle winning. And actually, Newcastle have won the last 6 matches. So yeah, that is pretty good looking for Newcastle. And I think Newcastle are going to extend the streak. I think Newcastle have the better team, have the momentum, and with that will get the W. Then we have Leicester against Everton. Leicester have started the season with 2 points out of the 4 Premier League games played, with the last one being a 2-2 draw against Crystal Palace and the other draw, I think, being against Tottenham in the first round. Everton have started the season in the Premier League with 0 points. And besides that, are also already out of the EFL Cup, where they lost against Southampton on penalties. So they are not looking really good at the moment. The last time Leicester and Everton have faced each other was back in 2023, where it ended in a draw. And I think with both teams being pretty equal, and also with their form being pretty equal, I think I'm going to go for a draw right here. Then we have Liverpool against Bournemouth. Liverpool have started the season with 9 points out of the first 4 games they played. They, of course, lost last week to Nottingham Forest, which kind of hurt me because I'm a Liverpool fan, and oh my god, it just hurts. But did of course bounce back a really great loss earlier this week against AC Milan in the Champions League, where they won 3-1. Bournemouth has started the season with 5 points in the first 4 games, with the last one being a 1-0 loss to Chelsea. Besides this, Bournemouth also lost in the EFL Cup, which was against West Ham, and with that are of course out of the cup. Last season, Liverpool and Bournemouth played each other 3 times, with all the 3 times Liverpool winning. And Liverpool have actually played Bournemouth 8 times at home, with 7 of them being a win for Liverpool and 1 being a draw. So Bournemouth have actually never won in the Liverpool Stadium and even got only 1 point out of those 8 matches. I think with that, and just the fact that I think Liverpool are stronger, are looking better, I think I'm going to go for a Liverpool win right here. And then we have Southampton against Ipswich. Southampton have started the season with 0 points in the Premier League, while in the EFL Cup they defeated Cardiff and Everton. Ipswich have started the season with 2 points in the Premier League, with first 2 losses against Liverpool and Manchester City. I mean, who hasn't? I mean, but then 2 draws against Fulham and Brighton, which I think are not bad teams. Last season, Ipswich and Southampton, of course, played each other twice, with Ipswich actually winning both matches. And I think the teams are quite equal, although I do really think Ipswich have looked better than Southampton this season. So with that, I'm actually going to go for an Ipswich win. And then we have Tottenham against Brentford. Tottenham have started the season with 4 points out of 4 matches, with the last 2 matches lost against Newcastle and Arsenal, which is of course not a shame, but if you want to fight for the top 4, top 6, you have to win one of these matches. But earlier this week they of course beat Coventry for the EFL Cup in an amazing comeback where they actually played with their second team. Brentford have started the season with 6 points out of 4 matches, with their losses coming against Manchester City and Liverpool. With Manchester City last week, I think not really a shame. And earlier this week, they did beat Leyton Orient in the EFL Cup. Last season, Tottenham and Brentford, of course, met each other twice, with Tottenham winning at home and the other one ending in a draw. And actually, in the history of Tottenham against Brentford, Brentford have never, ever won against Tottenham. The record at the moment is 7 wins for Tottenham and 4 draws. And I think this is not going to change this weekend, as I think Tottenham have looked better, are the better team, and with that should get the W right here. Then we have the matchup, Crystal Palace against Manchester United. Crystal Palace have started the season with 2 points out of the first 4 matches. And the 2 draws were the last 2 Premier League matches they played against Chelsea and of course Leicester last week. Earlier this week they won an EFL Cup against QPR. Manchester United have started the season with a loss in the Community Shield against City on penalties. And in the Premier League they are on 6 points after 4 games, with losses against Liverpool and Brighton. But last week they of course did win against Southampton. Earlier this week they also played in the EFL Cup against Barnsley, which was easily won with 7-0. But last season, Crystal Palace and Manchester United of course played each other 3 times, with both times in the league the home team winning, so both got 1 win. But in the EFL Cup, Crystal Palace won actually away in Manchester, in United. I think Manchester United have got the better team though, and basically should win this matchup, but they can't underestimate Crystal Palace because Crystal Palace have done quite well, but I think that they of course won't underestimate them. But yeah, no, I'm going to go for a Manchester United win right here. Then we have Brighton against Nottingham. Brighton have started the season with 2 wins and 2 draws, and with that are on 8 points after 4 games. Earlier this week, they also won an EFL Cup against Wolves, and with this, of course, are unbeaten this season. Nottingham have started the season with a draw, then a win, then a draw, and then a win again. And with that are also on 8 points after 4 games. But they did lose in the EFL Cup against Newcastle. And because of that, they're of course not unbeaten, but in the Premier League they are. And of course, Nottingham last week surprised Liverpool with a 1-0 win. Last season, Brighton and Nottingham have played each other twice, with actually Brighton winning both matchups. And I think Brighton do have like the better matchup, but Nottingham are of course doing pretty good this season with also like that win against Liverpool. So I expect like a pretty close match, but I do actually expect Brighton to be the better team and to get away with the win right there. Then the last matchup, and maybe the biggest one of this round of the Premier League, and maybe the bigger one of like the whole football scene this week. It is of course time for Manchester City against Arsenal. I think, of course, these two are the number 1 and number 2 of last season, maybe even the 1 and 2 of this season. But Manchester City started the year off good with first a win over town rivals Manchester United in the Community Shield. And then they actually won all 4 of the Premier League matches as well. But earlier this week, they actually were held to a draw against Inter Milan, where Inter Milan actually looked pretty good. And I think like Inter Milan did look really good, but I think also Manchester City should maybe have got the win there. But of course, with the draw, they are still unbeaten this season. Then we have Arsenal. We've started the season with 10 points out of the 4 Premier League games, but earlier this week in the Champions League were also held again to a draw against an Italian team, but they were of course up against Atlanta. But I actually think Arsenal deserve to lose their matchup, as I think Atlanta did look better in that match, and maybe if they just scored that penalty or maybe the rebound of the penalty, it would have been a whole different game, but they didn't. So Arsenal, fair play. A draw in the Champions League is of course not bad. Let's see. Manchester City and Arsenal, of course, also played each other 3 times last season against each other, with one ending in a win for Arsenal after penalties. And then in the league, Arsenal also won at home, but the other match in the league was a draw. The last time actually Arsenal won away though at Manchester City in 90 minutes was in 2015. Since then, 8 wins for City and 3 draws. And I think City have looked like better this season, and I think they have got the better squad just there. And because of that, I'm afraid, but I'm going to go for a Manchester City win right there. And then we're going to get into the betting part of the video. I'm going to be betting on 5 of these matches in the Premier League. The 5 matches that I have chosen are West Ham to win their matchup against, I think it was Chelsea. The odds for that is 3.4. Newcastle to win their matchup. The odds for that is 2.46. Leicester against Everton to draw. The odds for that is 3.45. Ipswich Town to win. The odds for that is 3.15. And then Manchester United to win their matchup. The odds for that is 2.37. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting on my basic strategy, betting strategy. And that is just putting 50 cents on the doubles and the trebles. With that, 10 euros. And if there are 2 matches right, I get a little bit of money. 3 matches right, I probably make profit. And with 4 or 5 matches right, I get even more profit. So I'm going to go for that strategy. So for now, I want to thank you all for watching. Please have a good day, and I'll see you.